Hi everyone. Before we get into this audiobook, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button and drop a like. It helps me out a lot, as well as contributes a lot to the channel. Now, let's get into the story. I hope you enjoy. The bakery felt like a sealed tomb, air thick enough to choke on. Bronwyn attacked the dough, each forceful shove a desperate attempt to tamp down the frantic energy fizzing beneath her skin. Outside, the tempest escalated, an external reflection of her internal turmoil. The heavens had deepened to a violent indigo, and the wind shrieked like a tormented spirit, clawing at the windows of Bronwyn's breads, yearning to rip them free. A sharp, metallic tang of approaching rain permeated the air, clashing with the sweet, familiar aroma of yeast in a disconcerting blend that stirred something primal within her. A glance at the clock confirmed closing time was near. Not a soul had dared venture out for a loaf or pastry. Relief washed over her. She craved the emptiness. Her dreams had intensified, growing more vivid, more demanding. Visions of silvered glades bathed in ethereal moonlight, and wolves. Always wolves, their eyes gleaming with an ancient, unknowable wisdom. She tried to dismiss them as mere figments, the byproduct of exhaustion and too many late nights, but they left her feeling adrift, disconnected from her reality. A jagged bolt of lightning ripped across the sky, followed by a thunderclap that rattled her bones. The light stuttered, then succumbed, plunging the bakery into near-total darkness. Only the muted glow of street lamps bleeding through the rain-streaked glass offered a meager source of illumination. Bronwyn expelled a frustrated breath, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. Naturally. Just another layer to the burgeoning unease. She groped under the counter for the flashlight, her fingers encountering something unexpectedly cold and rigid. A prickle of apprehension traced its way down her spine. She felt scrutinized. Just as she wrestled with the flashlight, the bell above the door chimed, a jarring intrusion upon the storm's symphony. Bronwyn straightened, her pulse quickening. Who in their right mind would be out in this maelstrom? She directed the flashlight toward the entrance. A shadowy figure filled the doorway, rain sleekening his dark hair against his skull. He was strikingly tall, his shoulders broad enough to eclipse the frame. Even in the dimness, she discerned an intense, almost feral, glint in his eyes, a golden spark that ignited a sudden flare of alarm, mingled with a strange, unsettling recognition. "Bronwyn," he rumbled, his voice a deep vibration that resonated in her core. "I've found you." Her mouth went desultory. "I'm sorry. Have we met?" He advanced into the bakery, shaking off the rain with the fluid grace of a wolf ridding itself of water. He carried the storm's scent with him, amplified, interwoven with something untamed, musky earth and pine, and an indefinable masculinity that was both intoxicating and overwhelming. "My name is Reese," he announced, his gaze locked on hers. "And you are my mate." The words hung suspended, weighty and incomprehensible. Mate? What was he implying? This had to be a case of mistaken identity. Or bow prank. "I think you've got the wrong person," she managed, her voice betraying a tremor despite her efforts to sound composed. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Reese closed the distance between them, each step deliberate. The golden fire in his eyes seemed to blaze brighter, searing into her. "No, Bronwyn, I don't. You are her. I've searched for you for so long." He extended a hand, hovering near her face, as if hesitant to make contact. His fingers were long and powerful, roughened, yet possessing a surprising gentleness. She should have flinched away, cried out, done something, anything to defend herself, but she felt rooted to the spot, paralyzed, captivated by his intense gaze. "You're frightening me," she breathed, the words almost swallowed by the storm. "I don't want to scare you," he replied, his voice softening, taking on an almost pleading quality. "I only want you to understand." "Understand what? That a complete stranger walks into my bakery in the middle of a hurricane and proclaims I'm his mate? That's ludicrous." Rhys winced, as if physically struck. He withdrew his hand, retreating slightly. "I know it's a lot to process, but it's the truth. You're not who you believe you are, Bronwyn." "And who do I think I am?" she retorted, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Just a baker. A perfectly ordinary, boring baker." "Ordinary? Hardly. You are anything but. You are royalty, a daughter of the moon goddess." Bronwyn gaped at him, rendered speechless. The moon goddess? Royalty? This wasn't just insane. It was utterly delusional. "Okay," she began slowly, striving to maintain a semblance of composure. "I believe you need to leave. I'm calling the authorities." She reached for the phone, but Rhys moved with startling speed. He crossed the room in a flash, his hand covering hers before she could dial. His touch sent a surge through her, a jolt of raw energy that stole her breath. "Please, Bronwyn, just listen," he implored, his eyes filled with desperation. "You're in peril. We both are. There are those who would prefer you dead than allow you to claim your birthright." "My birthright? I don't possess a birthright. I was abandoned as an infant. I was raised in an orphanage. I have no family, no history, no birthright." The words snagged in her throat, a painful knot forming in her chest. It was a truth she had carried her entire life, a perpetual reminder of her isolation, her lack of belonging. "That's what they wanted you to believe," Rhys insisted, his grip on her hand firming. "They concealed you, spirited you away to safeguard you. But they can't hide you eternally. The curse is weakening. They're coming for you." "Who's coming for me?" she asked, her voice trembling anew. "What curse? What are you even talking about?" "Creatures born of shadow and night," he whispered, lowering his voice. "They hunt those who carry the blood of the moon goddess. They fear your power, Bronwyn, the power you don't yet realize you possess." He released her hand, granting her space. He regarded her with such intensity, such yearning, such sorrow. It was etched in his features, in the lines framing his mouth, in the very way he stood, as though burdened by an unbearable weight. "I know it's difficult to accept," he said, his voice roughened with emotion. "But you have to trust me. I'm here to shield you. I'm here to assist you in reclaiming what is rightfully yours." Bronwyn stared at him, her mind in utter disarray. Everything she held to be true about herself, about her past, was being challenged, fractured. Could any of this be genuine? Could she be something more than a simple baker? Something other than ordinary? She searched Rhys's eyes, scrutinizing them for any flicker of deceit. But all she discerned was truth, and an unwavering conviction. And something else, something that resonated within her own being, a pull, a connection she couldn't refute. The storm raged with renewed vigor, the wind wailing like a chorus of forlorn wolves. The scent of rain and something wilder, something untamed, saturated the air. And Bronwyn, the baker who had always considered herself unremarkable, felt the first tentative stirrings of a dormant power, an undiscovered destiny. "Prove it," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Prove to me that what you're saying is real." Rhys nodded, his golden eyes blazing with fresh resolve. "I will," he affirmed. "I promise you, Bronwyn. I will reveal your true self to you." He grasped her hand once more, his touch sending another electric shiver through her. "But you must trust me. You must come with me. Now." "Proof," Bronwyn repeated, the word a brittle shield against the impossible reality Rhys was attempting to force upon her. Rain lashed against the bakery windows, mimicking the tempest brewing inside. Rhys's golden eyes, usually so warm, hardened with a sorrow that seemed ancient. "The curse, Bronwyn. It's the only way to truly understand." He stepped closer, the air thickening with a raw, untamed energy that both terrified and magnetized her. "Your birth was forbidden. Your mother, Lyra, was a direct descendant of the moon goddess, but she loved a human. Their union was seen as an abomination, a weakening of the bloodline. Before you were even born, the High Council of the Lunar Court decreed your death." Bronwyn recoiled, clutching the edge of the counter. Her head swam, the familiar scent of yeast and sugar suddenly nauseating. This is insane." Rhys didn't flinch. "They couldn't kill Lyra outright. The goddess's blood ran too strong. So, they cursed you. A binding spell, woven so deeply into your very essence that it masked your true heritage, trapped your powers, and slowly poisoned your life force." "Poisoned?" Bronwyn whispered, a cold dread creeping through her veins. She thought of the constant fatigue, the unexplained aches, the feeling that she was always operating at half capacity. "It was designed to make you weak, susceptible, and ultimately, to ensure you never ascended to your rightful place. To make you believe you were nothing more than ordinary." Rhys's voice cracked, his gaze intense. "Ordinary." The word echoed in Bronwyn's mind, the very foundation of her life crumbling beneath its weight. She'd always embraced the ordinary, sought comfort in its predictability. Now, it felt like a cage. He reached out, his large hand hovering inches from her cheek. "I can show you. I can break the illusion." A wave of dizziness washed over her, sharper than before. Images flickered behind her eyes, fragmented and chaotic. A woman with long, silver hair weeping under a luminous moon. A ritual performed in a hidden grove, chanting voices rising and falling like the tide a baby, swaddled in white, being spirited away in the dead of night. Bronwyn gasped, stumbling back. "Stop it! What are you doing to me? These are your memories, Bronwyn. Suppressed, but not gone." Rhys's voice was gentle, imploring. "The curse is weakening. My presence. It's stirring things within you." She pressed her hands to her temples, trying to shut out the onslaught of sensations. The bakery seemed to warp and twist, the familiar shelves of flour and sugar transforming into something alien and menacing. A sharp, searing pain shot through her arm, just below her left elbow. "The mark," Rhys breathed, his eyes fixed on her own. "It's appearing." Bronwyn looked down. Etched onto her skin, shimmering faintly with silver light, was a crescent moon cradled by a 5-pointed star. The design felt impossibly familiar, like a memory buried deep within her bones. This can't be real," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I'm Bronwyn. I'm a baker. I live here. I make bread." Rhys stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You are Bronwyn, and you are so much more. You are Lyra's daughter, A royal of the lunar court. My mate. And you are in grave danger. The words hung in the air, heavy with a truth she desperately didn't want to accept. Mate. Royal. Daughter of the moon goddess. They were foreign concepts, utterly incompatible with the life she knew. Get out, she said, the words barely a whisper. Rhys's face tightened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. Bronwyn, you don't understand. I understand that you're a crazy person who's broken into my bakery and is spouting nonsense, she shouted, her voice cracking with hysteria. I don't know who you are or what you want, but I want you to leave. Now. He stood his ground, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. They will come for you, Bronwyn. The council will not let you live once they realize the curse is failing. I am the only one who can protect you. Protect me? From what? From fairy tales? She gestured wildly around the bakery. This is my life. This is all I have. I'm not some moon princess or whatever you're calling it. I'm a baker. Tears streamed down her face, blurring her vision. She felt like she was unraveling, the carefully constructed fabric of her reality tearing apart at the seams. Rhys took a step toward her, his hand outstretched. Bronwyn, please. Just listen to me. She flinched away from his touch, backing against the counter. I don't want to hear it. I don't want any of it. Just go. Leave me alone. His expression crumpled, a flicker of pain crossing his features. He looked like a wounded wolf, torn between instinct and reason. I cannot leave you, Bronwyn. My bond, it will not allow it, but I will respect your wishes. For now. He turned and walked towards the door, his shoulders slumped with a weariness that belied his imposing stature. At the threshold, he paused, looking back at her one last time. Know this, Bronwyn, he said, his voice low and resonant. Whether you believe it or not, you are not alone. And I will be here when you realize you need me. Then he was gone, disappearing into the storm as quickly as he had arrived, leaving Bronwyn alone in the shattered remnants of her ordinary life. The crescent moon on her arm pulsed faintly, a silent reminder of the extraordinary destiny she was so desperately trying to deny. Night of the Hounds, the familiar bouquet of baking, usually Bronwyn's sanctuary, felt suffocating tonight. She attacked the countertop with a vengeance, the astringent cleaner biting at her senses, anything to scour away the phantom imprint of Rhys's touch, the echo of his pronouncements. Moon goddess? Cursed? Mate? The sheer outlandishness gnawed at her grip on reality. Outside the wind howled, rattling the bakery's aged panes. It's merely a storm, she insisted inwardly, the knot in her stomach just delayed reaction. Abruptly, a subterranean growl thrummed through the floor. Not the comforting drone of the delivery truck. This was visceral, predatory, spiked with a ravenous intent that raised gooseflesh across her skin. The lights stuttered and died, plunging her into darkness. Bronwyn gasped, groping for her phone. The screen's glow painted her face in stark, fearful relief. A grotesque form slammed against the window, fracturing the glass into a web of fishes. Then another, and another, until the entire front was a shattered tableau of monstrous silhouettes. Panic flooded her veins. She stumbled back, sending a cascade of baking sheets crashing to the floor in a deafening discord. The growls escalated, drawing closer, punctuated by the sickening rasp of claws against the door. Rhys. His name surfaced unbidden, a desperate plea she hadn't intended. He'd promised to stay near. But could she place her faith in him? Could any of this be real? Before reason could solidify, the door splintered inward, surrendering to a pack of shadowy figures, vaguely lupine yet impossibly immense, spilling into the bakery. Their eyes burned with malevolent emerald fire, and their teeth were cruel daggers. Their movements were unnervingly swift as they snarled and snapped. Bronwyn's scream ripped from her throat, a primal shriek of utter terror. A maelstrom of motion erupted from the gloom. Rhys. He fought with a savage grace she hadn't suspected, a controlled tempest of power. He hurled one of the beasts headlong into a bin of flour, erupting a blinding white cloud. He booted another, sending it skidding into the oven. He was shielding her, battling them, but how? He was, after all, just a man. Then the transformation began. A spectacle both chilling and sublime. An impossible reality unfolding before her eyes. Bones contorted, muscles swelled, fur unfurled across his flesh. He towered, broadened, until the Rhys she recognized vanished, replaced by a magnificent, terrifying wolf. His eyes, no longer hazel, blazed with the same molten gold she'd witnessed earlier. Bronwyn stood transfixed, unable to move. This defied all logic. Yet it was undeniably happening. The wolf, Rhys, unleashed a roar that resonated through the very bones of the building. He lunged at the shadowy intruders, ripping into them with ferocious elegance. His fangs tore, his claws slashed, driving them back in disarray. The creatures, momentarily stunned by his alteration, regrouped, circling Rhys, their hateful green gaze unwavering. One maunched itself, sinking its teeth into his shoulder. Rhys snarled, shaking it loose and retaliating with a furious swipe of his massive paw. Bronwyn watched, her pulse hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, as Rhys battled with frantic strength. He was injured, bleeding freely, but he remained unyielding. He was fighting for her survival. She had to intervene. She couldn't simply stand idly by and witness his demise. Seizing the heaviest baking sheet within reach, Bronwyn charged into the melee, swinging the metal with desperate force. It connected with the skull of one of the monsters, sending it reeling. She swung again, and again, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate compulsion to defend the man, the wolf, who was sacrificing everything for her. The creatures, momentarily distracted by her intervention, diverted their attention from Rhys, who seized the opening, tearing into their ranks with renewed brutality. One by one, they succumbed, their shadowy forms dissolving into vaporous trails. Finally, only one remained, the largest and most intimidating of the pack. It bared its fangs at Rhys, then at Bronwyn, before pivoting and hurtling through the ravaged window, vanishing into the darkness. Rhys stood heaving, his fur slicked with blood and dusted with flour. He slowly reverted, the metamorphosis as agonizing to witness as it surely was to experience. He crumpled against the counter, exposed and vulnerable. Bronwyn flew to his side, grabbing a clean apron to cloak him. The words caught in her throat. The world she once knew had been obliterated in a few harrowing minutes. "Are you all right?" she stammered, her voice a mere thread. Rhys met her gaze, his golden eyes brimming with pain and a fragile spark of hope. "I am now," he rasped, his voice raw. "Are you?" Bronwyn shook her head, tears coursing down her cheeks. "I don't comprehend any of this," she choked out. "What were those things? What are you? What am I?" Rhys reached out, his hand trembling, and gently brushed away a tear. "They were hounds of the lunar court," he murmured, "sent to extinguish you. I am what I revealed to you. And you, Bronwyn, are the linchpin to our salvation." His words offered no solace, merely confirmation of the living nightmare she was now shackled to. Destiny, curse, moon goddess. It was an unbearable weight. She surveyed the ravaged bakery, the fractured windows, the floor stained crimson. Her mundane existence had evaporated, replaced by a tapestry of magic and peril. "I can't do this," she whispered, her voice thick with despair. "I simply desire my old life back." Rhys's expression collapsed, a wave of anguish sweeping across his features. "I know," he said, his voice barely audible, "but choice is no longer yours." He reached for her, his touch tentative, pleading. "Come with me, Bronwyn. Allow me to safeguard you. Allow me to unveil your true self." Bronwyn gazed at him, at the wolf that still flickered in his eyes. Could she entrust him with her life? Could she even trust her own judgment? The answer, she understood, wasn't to be found in the ruins of her bakery, but somewhere beyond, shrouded in the night, where the hounds of the lunar court lay in wait. Drawing a shuddering breath, she made her decision. Sanctuary of shadows. The forest dissolved into a blur of emerald and charcoal as Rhys loped through the undergrowth, his long strides devouring the terrain. A frigid air nipped at her skin, carrying the mingled scents of turned earth and evergreen needles. Bronwyn burrowed closer, the steady cadence of his heart, a frail reassurance against the frantic flutter in her own chest. She couldn't bear to glance back at the embers that marked the grave of her bakery, a life reduced to ruin in a single, cataclysmic night. Every fiber in Rhys's frame screamed in protest, yet he pressed onward, jaw clenched, his amber gaze fixed on some distant, invisible beacon. He met her gaze, a silent entreaty etched on his cow. "Features. Hang on, Bronwyn. Almost there. I swear, you'll be safe. Safe." The word tasted like ash, a cruel jest in this unfolding nightmare. Sheltered from what? Denizens of the dark, a destiny she hadn't sought. Or from him, perhaps. She gripped him tighter, burying her face against the curve of his neck, inhaling his singular aroma, a potent brew of wood smoke, leather, and a feral tang she couldn't place. The trees thickened, their boughs a dense canopy overhead, swallowing the last dregs of twilight. A palpable aura of ancient power thrummed in the air, a visceral hum that resonated through her very bones. Abruptly, Rhys halted. Before them, masked by a deceptive curtain of vines and dass, twisted roots, yawned a portal, a shadowy maw leading into the forest's heart. He adjusted her weight, securing his hold. "This is it, Bronwyn. Silverwood." He stepped through, and reality twisted. The temperature rose, the oppressive gloom receding to reveal a secluded valley awash in the spectral radiance of bioluminescent flora, structures of timber and stone nestled in. Amongst the trees, their windows glowing with hospitable warmth, the inhabitants moved with purpose, their expressions a blend of curiosity and apprehension. They were different, stronger, keener, radiating an undeniable potency that distinguished them from ordinary folk. Rhys traversed the village's core, drawing every eye. Children's games ceased, their gazes wide with wonder. Warriors interrupted their drills, their faces guarded. Women emerged from dwellings, their countenances etched with concern. The atmosphere vibrated with unspoken questions, a tangible tension that prickled her skin. Eventually, he paused before a formidable edifice constructed of massive logs. Sentries flanked the entrance, their faces impassive, their eyes sharp. They recognized Rhys instantly, their features softening with relief. "Rhys, you're back. We heard about the fire." Rhys inclined his head, his tone taut. "I need to see the Alpha. Now." They stood aside, granting him passage. The building's interior proved surprisingly inviting, a welcome contrast to the steely visages outside. A bonfire raged in a vast hearth, casting sinuous shadows that danced on the walls. The air hung heavy with the fragrance of burning wood and steeped herbs. A cluster of individuals surrounded a large table, their voices hushed. They pivoted as Rhys entered, their expressions mirroring those she'd observed outside: curiosity, unease, and profound worry. A figure arose from the table's head, his movements smooth and deliberate despite his age. He possessed a commanding presence, framed by silver hair and eyes of piercing blue that seemed to penetrate her very soul. The Alpha, without a doubt. He approached Rhys, his gaze assessing. "Rhys, you're wounded. What occurred?" "They attacked, Alpha. They targeted the bakery. They sought her." Rhys gestured weakly toward Bronwyn, his voice raspy. The Alpha's attention shifted, his expression enigmatic. He scrutinized her for a long moment, his eyes lingering on the faint lunar birthmark adorning her wrist. A flicker of recognition ignited, followed by a profound sigh. "So, it's true then. The prophecy." He addressed the assembled group, his voice resonating with command. "Everyone, leave us. I need to confer with Rhys and our guest privately." They hesitated, their faces etched with concern, but ultimately obeyed, departing in silence. The Alpha turned back to Rhys, his expression hardening with concern. "Lay her down, Rhys. You require treatment." Rhys gently eased Bronwyn onto a nearby divan, his hand lingering on hers for a fleeting moment. "I'll recover, Alpha. Just enlighten her. Explain what's transpiring." He swayed, his complexion ashen. The Alpha nodded, then refocused on Bronwyn. He drew up a chair, his gaze unwavering. "Bronwyn, I am Aemon. I am the Alpha of the Silverwood Pack. Rhys has brought you here for your protection." "Protection? From what?" "From those creatures." "What were they?" Her voice trembled, barely audible. "They are known as shadow wolves, beings of darkness and discord. They serve a force intent on obliterating the moon goddess's legacy." Aemon paused, sorrow clouding his gaze. "And you, Bronwyn, are vital to that legacy. You are descended from the moon goddess herself." The revelation struck her like a physical blow, stealing the oxygen from her lungs. "That's impossible. I was just a baker." "You were raised as a human, ignorant of your true lineage. But the goddess's blood courses within your veins. That is why the shadow wolves pursue you. It is why Rhys is sworn to protect you. He is your mate, chosen by the goddess to be your guardian, your companion." She stared at him, her mind in turmoil. Mate, goddess, shadow wolves. It was overwhelming, beyond comprehension. She glanced at Rhys, sprawled on the floor, pale with exhaustion, his eyes shut. He had jeopardized his existence for her, for a stranger he claimed was his mate. "Why?" I don't understand," she stammered. "Why me? Why now?" "The prophecy foretells a time when the equilibrium between light and shadow will be jeopardized, a time when the moon goddess's descendant will emerge, wielding the capacity to either safeguard or shatter the world. That time is upon us, Bronwyn, and you are that descendant." "Ah!" He reached out, his hand hovering above hers, yet he refrained from touching her. "You face a choice, Bronwyn. You can reject your birthright, attempt to reclaim the life you once cherished. But the shadow wolves will relentlessly hunt you, you will be perpetually imperiled. Or you can embrace your heritage, master your abilities, and battle for our world's salvation. It will be an arduous path, fraught with danger, but you will not be alone. Rhys will remain at your side, and so will we, the Silverwood Pack. She looked from Aemon to Rhys, her heart hammering against her ribs. Predestination versus volition, light versus darkness, a realm of enchantment and monsters versus the mundane existence she had always known. The decision was hers, but did she truly have a choice? Her ordinary life had been annihilated, seized by the horrors of the night, and in its wake was this unfathomable, terrifying reality. She looked at Rhys again, his face a canvas of pain and fatigue. He was defenseless, imploring her to place her trust in him, to accept him. And at that moment, she recognized her course. I don't know if I'm capable of this," she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. "But I'll try. I'll endeavor to understand. I'll try, too, to learn." Aemon nodded, his eyes softening with empathy. "Then welcome, Bronwyn, to the Sanctuary of Shadows. Your odyssey begins now." The clearing sharpened, the pungent aroma of pine assaulting Bronwyn's senses. A tremor coursed through her, her body's resistance to the volatile magic that still pulsed beneath her skin. Rhys lingered nearby, his features composed, yet the lines bracketing his eyes hinted at his concern. For hours he had pushed her limits, guiding her through drills intended to unlock her latent abilities, the power that, he insisted, held the key to their salvation or destruction. "Once more," he urged, his tone gentle yet unyielding. "Focus on the sensation, Bronwyn, the moon's call." "Easier declared than achieved," she mused, her muscles screaming in protest. Magic flowed through his very being, a werewolf's birthright. She, on the other hand, had once excelled at kneading dough. Now, she was supposedly descended from lunar royalty, whatever that entailed, and expected to command forces beyond her comprehension. She squeezed her eyes shut, striving to recapture the earlier experience, the surge of energy that had briefly ignited her palms. It evoked solidified moonlight, a vibrant, chilling thrum, but the recall proved elusive, dissipating like vapor. "I can't," she muttered, laced with burgeoning frustration. "It's just not happening." Rhys closed the distance between them, his presence a comforting heat. "It will. Patience is key. Mastery doesn't bloom overnight." "Patience," she silently scoffed. The weight of her purported destiny crushed her, stifling her spirit. "Saving the world?" She struggled to produce an edible sourdough, let alone harness some primeval cosmic force. "Maybe you're mistaken," she blurted, the words escaping before she could retract them. "Perhaps I'm not who you believe me to be. Maybe this is all a grand error." Rhys's jaw tightened visibly, a flash of hurt momentarily clouding his eyes. "This is no mistake, Bronwyn. I trust the evidence before me. I know what I felt." He reached out, his fingertips tracing the curve of her cheek. "The power resides within you, Bronwyn, far more than you grasp. All that's lacking is belief in yourself." His touch ignited a cascade of shivers, a confusing confluence of comfort mingling with a deeper nascent yearning. "The bond," he termed it. "The mating bond." Yet another layer of complexity in a life already teetering on the edge of chaos. The intrusion of a sharp cough shattered the spell. A woman materialized from the trees, arms crossed, her expression a mask of disapproval. Ilara, a pack elder, had made her disdain for Bronwyn clear from day one. "Rhys," Ilara's voice dripped with contempt, You are wasting precious energy. She is feeble, entirely human, lacking the necessary strength. Bronwyn winced, the words landing like physical blows. Skepticism, even resentment, simmered amongst the pack. She was aware. To them, she was an interloper, a threat to their established order. But to hear it articulated with such callousness, it stung deeply. Rhys pivoted, his gaze hardening into a steely glare. Ilara, enough. Bronwyn is under my protection. She is my chosen mate. Ilara scoffed derisively. A human? Such a choice dishonors the pack, Rhys. Sacrificing everything for a weakling incapable of controlling her own innate magic. She is learning, Rhys growled, his voice a low, menacing rumble. Learning? Ilara's laughter rang out, brittle and cruel. While the shadow wolves draw closer, while our foes gather strength, we have no time for leisurely pursuits, Rhys. We need fortitude. We need a leader, not a decorative. Distraction. Bronwyn's fists clenched involuntarily. Damsel? She might not yet command magic, but she was far from helpless. She had carved out a life for herself, built from sheer grit and determination. She possessed a different kind of strength, even if Ilara failed to see it. I am no damsel, she asserted, her voice trembling but resolute. And I am not afraid to learn what must be learned. Ilara's eyes narrowed, sweeping over Bronwyn with unveiled scorn. Prove it then, human. The challenge hung in the air, thick with animosity. Bronwyn glanced at Rhys, observing a complex blend of concern and pride etched upon his features. He understood Ilara's game, her intent to break her spirit, to drive her away. But he also recognized Bronwyn's inner resolve, refusal to yield. What is it you want me to do? Bronwyn inquired, lifting her chin defiantly. Ilara's lips stretched into a cruel, predatory smile. We have an upcoming trial, a test of mettle. Let's see if you can even survive it without assistance. The exercise proved to be a brutal gauntlet, a grueling obstacle course designed to push their physical and magical limits to the extreme. Bronwyn observed as pack members effortlessly navigated walls, vaulted over perilous chasms, and deflected waves of magical projectiles. By stark contrast, she stumbled, floundered, and struggled, her inexperience glaringly obvious. The initial obstacle manifested as a shimmering wall of raw energy, crackling with heat. Seasoned pack members simply strode through it, their forms momentarily distorting before reforming on the other side. Bronwyn hesitated, dread seizing her. What if she failed? What if Ilara's assessment held true? Rhys positioned himself at her side, a reassuring hand resting against her back. Focus, Bronwyn. Recall the sensation of the moon's essence. Let it guide you. Shutting out the taunts and whispers of the onlookers, she focused on Rhys's words, the recollection of moonlight, the burning desire to validate herself. Drawing a deep breath, she stepped forward. The energy slammed into her with the force of a physical blow, a searing wave of heat threatening to engulf her. A cry escaped her lips, her body convulsing, but she pressed onward, pushing through the agony. Then, just when her endurance reached its limit, she found herself on the opposite side. Collapsing! She gasped for breath, her body shaking uncontrollably. But she had prevailed. She had survived the initial onslaught. The subsequent challenge proved even more daunting. A sequence of shifting platforms, each progressively smaller and more precarious than the last. Bronwyn watched as others traversed the course with effortless grace, their movements fluid and controlled. Attempting to emulate them, her foot slipped, her balance faltered, and she tumbled to the hard-packed earth. A wave of laughter washed over her, punctuated by derisive jeers. Bronwyn's face flushed with shame, her resolve beginning to crumble. Maybe she was inherently unsuited for this existence. Perhaps she should concede defeat and return to her former life. But then she locked eyes with Rhys, his gaze radiating unwavering encouragement. He believed in her potential, even when she doubted herself, and that proved sufficient to galvanize her onward. Scrambling back to her feet, her legs trembling uncontrollably, she tried again. Falls became frequent, each scrape and bruise chipping at her pride. But with each misstep, a lesson emerged. She refined her balance, sharpened her timing, and pushed herself relentlessly. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, she reached the end of the treacherous course. Stumbling, nearly succumbing to a final fall, she managed to regain her composure and stand upright. The laughter had ceased. The pack members now regarded her with expressions that hinted at both surprise and begrudging admiration. Even Ilara appeared momentarily taken aback. Bronwyn had survived the trial by fire. She had demonstrated that she was neither weak nor defenseless. She was a vessel of moon goddess royalty, prepared to fight for her destiny. As Rhys embraced her, murmuring words of praise and affection, Bronwyn knew that her journey remained long. But she also realized that she did not walk alone. She had Rhys, and she possessed the power of the moon coursing through her veins. And that would be enough to confront whatever trials lay ahead. The jeers faded, replaced by an uneasy quiet. Bronwyn registered a glimmer of nascent respect in the eyes of a few pack members, but Ilara's stare remained glacial, calculating. This was far from over. There would be further trials. Later that night, sleep eluded Bronwyn as she tossed and turned in the guest chamber Rhys had prepared. The day's events replayed in an endless loop. The daunting tests, the lingering ache, and the sting of prejudice. She felt exposed, an outsider in a world she was expected to save with powers she barely understood. She was caught betwixt fear and resolution. But then she recalled Rhys's face, the image of his unwavering belief, his strong hands, and fiercely protective gaze filled her mind, driving away the fear. He was her anchor in a sea of madness, the sole person who made it all seem possible. She was his mate, and he was hers. A team, no matter the distance or hardship. She closed her eyes. The moon hung high, bathing the room in a faint glow. A silent beacon of strength, whispers of the prophecy the feel of Rhys's hand offered steadfast reassurance. Afternoons unfolded in the training yard, the sharp fragrance of evergreens mixing with the earthy scent of moist soil. He relentlessly challenged her, coaxing forth the nascent power that pulsed just beneath her surface, a frustrating blend of promise and elusiveness. It felt akin to a trapped songbird, desperate for flight, yet the cage door remained locked. A keen frustration nipped at her, a bitter tang that mirrored the hesitant skepticism in the eyes of some pack members, particularly Ilara, whose disdain hung in the air like a tangible weight. "Again, Bronwyn," Rhys would urge, his tone even, though the rigid line of his jaw hinted at the pressure he bore. His constant defense of her, deflecting Ilara's subtle barbs and the pack's overt reservations, visibly taxed him. The ensuing guilt pressed down on her. One evening, after another unproductive session, she found solace by the babbling creek, its waters murmuring a somber melody. A slender crescent moon painted elongated, distorted shapes across the landscape. Still in her worn training leathers, she hadn't bothered to change. "Hey," he murmured, settling beside her. He hesitated to touch her, sensing her inner storm. "Tough day?" Bronwyn sighed, selecting a smooth gray stone and skipping it across the water's surface. I feel like I'm failing you, Rhys. Everyone. Most of all, you. He clasped her hand, his thumb gently stroking her palm. You're not. You're progressing. This doesn't come easily, Bronwyn. Patience is key. But what if time runs out? The words burst forth, edged with raw worry. What if Ilara's right? What if I simply lack the strength? His grip tightened perceptibly. Don't entertain such thoughts. I know your potential. I see it, even when your own vision is clouded. He tilted her chin, compelling her gaze to meet his. His eyes, usually a warm amber, now shimmered with flecks of gold, the wolf spirit close to the surface. You are the strongest person I know, Bronwyn. Believe in that strength. She yearned to trust his conviction, to embody the powerful figure he envisioned the moon goddess's heir, rather than the unassuming baker from a quiet village. I'm striving, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. He drew closer, his breath a warm caress against her cheek. I know you are. His lips met hers in a kiss, slow and tender, imbued with hope and anticipation. His hand found the nape of her neck, deepening the contact, pulling her closer until she leaned into him, the world spinning slightly off kilter. Later, entwined in his arms within his chamber, enveloped by the scent of wolf and wood smoke, Bronwyn succumbed to a fitful slumber. The dream then descended, vivid and disquieting. She perceived a landscape bathed in ethereal moonlight, ancient monoliths rising from the earth, inscribed with unfamiliar symbols. Then, a voice, ancient and commanding, resounded in her mind, chanting names and places a prophecy carried on the breeze. She awoke with a start, her heart hammering, a film of perspiration clinging to her skin. Rhys was instantly alert, his muscles coiled, ready to shield her. What is it? He questioned, his voice hushed and urgent. What's wrong? Bronwyn sat upright, her thoughts racing, attempting to gather the threads of the dream, the images and words swirling like a dense fog. I had a dream, she uttered, her voice trembling. A vision, I think. She recounted the entirety of her experience, the bizarre terrain, the old stones, the voice whispering the prophecy. As she spoke, the fragments coalesced into a cohesive vision. It spoke of 3 relics, she declared, her voice gaining resolve. Objects of incredible power, scattered across the land. They are the linchpin, Rhys, the key to severing the curse. Rhys listened intently, his brow creased in concentration. Which relics? Their names elude me, Bronwyn replied, frustrated. But I glimpsed them. One was a chalice, crafted from pure moonbeams. Another, a dagger, birthed in dragon flame. And the last a crown, woven from starlight. The weight of the prophecy descended upon them, a palpable burden. Recovering these artifacts would prove perilous, a quest fraught with danger. But it also represented their sole recourse. The voice also revealed, Bronwyn continued, her voice barely audible, that only a scion of the moon goddess, bonded to her true mate, can harness their strength. Rhys reached for her hand, his grasp firm and reassuring. Then we shall find them. As one. But the prophecy also bore a darker caveat, a shadow concealing the promise of deliverance. Bronwyn recalled the voice, its tone shifting, tinged with a sense of foreboding. Beware the betrayer, she warned, her voice shaking. For within your very circle, a serpent lies coiled, preparing to strike. Silence descended, the gravity of the words hanging heavy in the atmosphere. Betrayal. A chilling prospect, the notion that someone they trusted would endeavor to undermine them. Rhys stood up, his eyes narrowed, his gaze sweeping the room as if to unmask the concealed enemy lurking within the shadows. "We must proceed with caution," he stated, his voice grim. "Trust no one." But Bronwyn realized such a course was untenable. They required the pack their combined strength and unwavering allegiance. They could not navigate this path unaided. Yet how could they discern who was deserving of their trust? The seed of suspicion had taken root, threatening to poison the well. The quest had commenced, a race against the clock to locate the artifacts and break the curse. But the most formidable threat might not stem from the external perils they would confront, but from the betrayal brewing from within their own ranks. The prophecies' murmurs had illuminated their course, but it had also cast a daunting shadow, a constant reminder that even amongst their closest companions, treachery could lie dormant, waiting for the opportune moment to unleash its venom. And Bronwyn felt, with a chilling certainty, that the price of failure would extend beyond their own mortality. It would entail the annihilation of everything they cherished. The moonstones call the air, thick with the perfume of resin and loam, pressed down on Bronwyn, raising gooseflesh despite her heavy cloak. A disquiet, deeper than the woodland chill, vibrated within her, an instinctive alarm she struggled to decipher. This forest held a stark primeval essence, far removed from the familiar cadence of her life. Rhys halted abruptly, head cocked, inhaling the forest's secrets. "We're observed," he breathed, the words a low growl. The unspoken threat hung palpable. Bronwyn felt the weight of unseen gazes, a prickling awareness on her skin. He pivoted, his gaze locking onto hers, intense as molten gold. "Stay close." Her pulse quickened, a frantic drum against her ribs. "What is it?" she managed, striving for composure. "Premature to say. Could be stray wolves or something fouler." Steel whispered free of its scabbard, catching the fragmented sunlight like liquid mercury. Rhys moved with a honed grace, a predator at ease, unsettling and alluring. Deeper they ventured, the woods morphing into a cathedral of ancient trees. Gnarled roots, like skeletal fingers, clawed across their path. The temperature plummeted, a stark contrast to the filtered sunlight, as if they descended into the earth's cold embrace. A snap echoed behind them. Rhys spun, blade poised, finding only shadows. "Reveal yourselves." The challenge reverberated through the silent woods. An answering growl, deep and malignant, crawled from the undergrowth. Twin embers, burning crimson, materialized from the gloom. Not wolves, but Mockery's lupine bodies adorned with grotesquely human masks. Yellowed fangs, elongated and cruel, jutted from their jaws. "Gull," Rhys spat, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Creatures tainted by dark sorcery." One of the gull erupted forward, claws extended in a deadly raking motion. The reverberating clang of metal meeting bone shattered the silence as Rhys intercepted the attack. Bronwyn, paralyzed by initial shock, felt the icy fingers of fear. Useless. Untrained, unarmed, devoid of power. Yet Rhys's past words echoed, "You are more than you know." She had to act. Deliberately, she sought the buried power glimpsed during her training. It felt distant, a phantom touch. Concentrating, she envisioned the moon, imagined its argent light caressing her. A surge of untamed energy throbbed through her. She reached out, unleashing a raw burst of power that slammed into the remaining gull, sending it crashing against a tree, where it slumped, whimpering. Rhys dispatched its companion with merciless efficiency. He turned, his gaze a complex tapestry of surprise and pride. "Well done," he acknowledged, his eyes gleaming. "But tread cautiously. This was merely a glimpse of what awaits." Their pace accelerated by dread, they continued their journey. The terrain became more challenging, the path a treacherous ascent towards the looming mountains. Hours bled into one another. Exhaustion clawed at Bronwyn. Her muscles screamed, her lungs burned, and her cloak felt like shackles. Doubt wormed its way into her resolve. Was she strong enough? Could she truly protect herself, defend Rhys? "We need respite," Rhys declared, observing her weakening state. He guided her to a small haven near a cascading waterfall, its melody a soothing balm against the oppressive quiet. He knelt, drinking deeply from the stream, then offered her cupped hands. "Drink," he urged. "It will revive you." The frigid water soothed her parched throat. "How much further?" she rasped. "Close," he assured. "The entrance to the Moonstone Cavern lies concealed behind the falls, but it's shielded by wards." "Wards?" she questioned. "Magical deterrents. Designed to repel intruders." He studied her, a flicker of concern in his expression. "You are not obligated to do this, Bronwyn. I can proceed alone." The offer resonated with temptation to withdraw, to reclaim the safety of her home, to forsake the magic and its perils. But she found herself unable to yield. This was her destiny, however unwelcome, however ever unwelcome. Terrifying. She had to confront it. "I'm not abandoning you," she stated, her voice ringing with newfound resolve. "We are in this together." A smile, radiant and genuine, erased the shadows from his eyes. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Then let us proceed." Approaching the waterfall with circumspection, they perceived a shimmering distortion in the air, a subtle indication of the interwoven magic. Rhys halted, eyes narrowed, observing the deluge. "I discern them," he murmured. "Runes etched into the rock beneath the water, ancient and potent." He began to chant, his voice a low, resonating counterpoint, weaving a spell to dismantle the wards. The air crackled with unseen energy, the water shimmering with increased intensity. Abruptly, a section of the rock face parted, revealing a narrow, dark passage behind the waterfall. A gust of icy air rushed forth, carrying the aroma of damp stone, and an alien tang, something ancient and powerful. "The Moonstone," Bronwyn breathed, her heart hammering. They stepped through the opening into the inky darkness. The passage was constricting, the walls slick and cold. The air grew heavy, oppressive. As they moved deeper, strange symbols etched into the walls pulsed with an eerie luminescence, unlike anything Bronwyn had ever encountered. Without warning, the passage narrowed, forcing them to crawl. The air grew thick, suffocating. Panic began to well in Bronwyn's chest, the claustrophobia unbearable. "Rhys." She choked, her voice muffled. "I cannot." "Just a bit further," he soothed, his voice a beacon of calm. "I am right behind you." He clasped her hand, his touch a grounding force, alleviating her growing anxiety. Focusing on his hand, the warmth of his skin, she pressed on. At last, the passage spilled into a vast cavern. The air was utterly still, illuminated only by the spectral glow of the wall symbols. Centered within the cavern, resting upon a stone plinth, rested the Moonstone. It throbbed with a gentle, otherworldly light, radiating palpable power, beautiful and mesmerizing. But as Bronwyn reached for it, a voice resonated through the cavern, glacial and malicious. So, the moon goddess's heir has finally arrived. The cave air was dense and frigid, each exhalation a spectral puff. Bronwyn leaned heavily on Rhys, the damp, uneven floor treacherous beneath their feet. Their encounter with the entity had leached her strength, leaving no physical wounds, but severing a vital connection within. She felt untethered, the bedrock of her past life, a distant, fading coastline. "Are you all right?" Rhys's voice, raspy with worry, pierced her swirling thoughts. His grip tightened on her hand, a reassuring solidity in the bewildering fog. I don't know," she confessed, her voice barely audible. It felt like it knew me better than I know myself. Rhys didn't push, understanding evident in his expression. He steered her further into the cavern, where the air became milder, tinged with the aroma of pine and a deeper, more primeval scent. The passage widened into a sun-drenched clearing, an improbable sanctuary nestled within the mountain's core. A cascade tumbled into a crystalline pool, its music a soothing balm. Beside the water, perched on a moss-covered stone, sat an elderly woman. Her face was a tapestry of wrinkles, her eyes the shade of jade, and her silvery hair streamed down her back like a luminous waterfall. She sat motionless, yet Bronwyn sensed a vibrant power radiating from her, an intimate bond with the earth beneath them. "You seek the moonstone," the woman declared, her tone a deep, resonant vibration that resonated in Bronwyn's very marrow. "But first, you must grasp the true nature of your quest." Rhys stiffened, his protective instincts spiking. He shifted slightly in front of Bronwyn. "Who are you?" The woman's smile etched a delicate web around her eyes. "I am known by many names. Oracle of the Whispering Woods, Fate's Weaver, Keeper of Forgotten Lore. But you may call me Aisling." Her gaze swung back to Bronwyn, sharp and knowing. "You bear the emblem of Luna royalty, child. A heritage both precious and perilous." Bronwyn shivered, the seer's words mirroring the entity's dire claims. I don't understand." "I'm just a baker." Aisling chuckled, a dry, rustling sound like autumn leaves skittering across stone. "Are you truly? Or is that merely the facade you present? The veil shielding your authentic self?" She gestured to a spot beside her on the boulder. "Come, child. Sit. Let me unveil the threads of your lineage, the panorama of your destiny." Hesitantly, Bronwyn approached, Rhys remaining close, their hands linked. She settled beside Aisling, the cool moss a stark contrast to the sudden heat that flushed her cheeks. Aisling clasped Bronwyn's hand, her touch surprisingly light. Closing her eyes, she began to intone in a tongue Bronwyn didn't recognize, yet felt echoing within her core. Images assaulted Bronwyn's mind. A forest bathed in moonlight, a woman with gleaming hair weeping over a babe, a shadowy rite, a desperate entreaty. "The curse," Aisling murmured, her voice strained. It sprang not from malice, but from apprehension. "Your forebear, the first lunar royal, forged a pact to safeguard her kin. But she suffered treachery. Her power became distorted, her bloodline corrupted." Bronwyn gasped, the visions within her intensifying, gaining clarity and substance. She perceived herself as an infant, wrapped in shimmering fabric, being born through a raging tempest. "To protect you," Aisling pressed on. "Your mother, the final true scion, concealed you in the human realm, severing the connection to your legacy. She hoped to shelter you from the malediction, granting you the possibility of a conventional existence." But it failed, Bronwyn breathed, the realization solidifying. The curse, it still found me. It lies dormant within you, child, Aisling responded, her tone edged with sorrow. Awaiting awakening. The moonstone can aid you in mastering it, in channeling its force for good. But that path is fraught with peril. Rhys shifted, his discomfort evident. What dangers lie ahead? Aisling's eyes flickered open, their jade depths gleaming with unsettling prescience. The entity you encountered is merely a splinter of the darkness that seeks to engulf your lineage. It will endeavor to influence you, to manipulate you, to turn you against your own fate. And the prophecy? Bronwyn questioned, her voice trembling. The artifacts, the betrayal? Aisling sighed, the sound resonant with resignation. The prophecy is a marker, not a fixed route. It illuminates the path, but does not predetermine the voyage. The relics bear the potential to lift the curse, but they are shielded by ordeals that will challenge your fortitude, your allegiance, and your affections. She peered at Rhys, her gaze unwavering. Trust is a fragile thing, Werewolf. It can be shattered with a whisper, a glance. Beware those who proffer assistance, for not every comrade is genuine. Bronwyn felt a cold dread constricting her stomach. She turned to Rhys, searching his golden eyes for reassurance. Instead, she detected a flicker of uncertainty, a shadow of apprehension. Could she truly confide in him? Could she trust anyone in this strange, perilous world? The road ahead is paved with tribulation, Aisling continued, her tone low and urgent. You will confront enemies both external and internal. You will be seduced by influence, tested by deprivation, and plagued by uncertainty. But you must remember who you truly are, Bronwyn. You are far more than a baker. You are a daughter of the moon goddess, a beacon of light, a hope for a world fading from existence. She clasped Bronwyn's hand once more, pressing a small, polished stone into her palm. This is a moon shard. It will guide you through the shadows, shield you from the darkness. But it is only a tool. Your true power resides within. Bronwyn closed her fingers around the fragment, feeling its cool energy coursing through her veins. She met Aisling's gaze, her own eyes now brimming with resolution. I'm ready, she affirmed, her voice steady. I'm prepared to confront my destiny. Aisling smiled, a spark of hope igniting within her eyes. Then proceed, child. The moonstone awaits. But be warned, this journey will irrevocably alter you. A miasma of wet soil and decaying foliage clung to the air as they neared the ruins. Bronwyn shuddered, her shawl a meager defense against more than just the chill. A disquieting sensation prickled her skin, a premonition humming in her very marrow. Everything all right? Rhys inquired, amber eyes sweeping the crumbling stone walls before them. His hand briefly touched hers, a silent reassurance. Just a feeling, she breathed, scarcely louder than the wind. Like unseen eyes are on us are. Rhys's jaw hardened. They are. But I sense no immediate peril, only expectation. He inhaled deeply, and something else. A familiarity, twisted somehow. The ruins proved far more extensive than imagined. What might have been a magnificent temple was now a gaunt skeleton, stubbornly resisting the encroaching woods. Ivy, like grasping fingers, climbed time-worn pillars, concealing eroded carvings. The very air vibrated with latent energy, a silent resonance mirroring the nascent lunar awareness stirring within her. They advanced with caution, Rhys leading, his senses honed to the subtle language of the wilderness. Bronwyn followed, her pulse a frantic drum against her ribs. Each lengthening shadow seemed to coil and shift, each rustle of leaves mimicking approaching footsteps. At last, they reached the heart of the ruins. A roofless circular chamber opened to the heavens. Moonlight cascaded down, spotlighting a single, polished stone pedestal at its center. Resting atop it, bathed in an otherworldly glow, was the moonstone. It pulsed with soft, internal light, a mesmerizing dance of silver and azure. Bronwyn gasped, feeling an almost irresistible pull, a longing for belonging she hadn't acknowledged. But as she reached out, Rhys restrained her. "Wait," he murmured, his tone laced with urgency. "Something's amiss." Before she could question him, the silence exploded. A fusillade of arrows rained down from the surrounding trees, striking the stone floor inches from their feet. Rhys roared, throwing himself in front of Bronwyn, a bulwark against the assault. With a fluid shift, bones rearranged, muscles distended, and a colossal gray wolf stood crash. In his place, its teeth bared in a ferocious snarl, hunters materialized from the shadows, their faces set, their eyes gleaming with malice. Armed with crossbows and silver-tipped spears, their movements were sharp, practiced. Bronwyn stumbled back, her mind reeling. She'd anticipated danger, but not such a focused, coordinated strike. Rhys, in his lupine form, became a tempest of fur and fury, tearing through the hunters, scattering them like chaff, before the wind. Yet they were relentless, pressing their attack, their numbers a suffocating tide. Bronwyn knew she couldn't remain passive. She had to act. But how? Her powers were nascent, her grasp of her heritage still uncertain. Fear threatened to paralyze her, to drown her in helplessness. Then, Aisling's counsel echoed in her mind. Trust your instincts. Embrace your power. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes, centering herself on the energy thrumming within, the dormant lunar fire awaiting release. She extended her senses, feeling the ebb and flow of magic in the air, the intricate web connecting her to this place, to the moonstone. Opening her eyes, she saw the hunters closing on Quock. Rhys, spears raised, poised to strike. A surge of power ripped through her, a tidal wave of pure lunar energy that slammed into the hunters, sending them sprawling, their senses reeling. Rhys, the moonstone! She cried, her voice ragged. He hesitated, concern etched on his features, then lunged forward, seizing the moonstone in his jaws. Returning to his human form, he clutched the stone to his chest. As they prepared to flee, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the moonlight. He was tall and cloaked, his face obscured, but his voice, when he spoke, was clear and devoid of warmth. "So, the lost princess finally reveals herself," he commented, amusement coloring his tone. "It's been a long time, Bronwyn Ira Lyra." Bronwyn froze, her breath seizing in her lungs. How did he know her full name? A name consigned to memory, never uttered aloud. Rhys growled, positioning himself defensively before her. "Who are you?" The figure chuckled, a chilling sound. "Someone privy to secrets, Wolf. Someone aware of the potent power slumbering within the princess. And someone intending to claim it as his own." With a gesture, the remaining hunters surged forward, their attack renewed. "We need to get out of here. Now," Rhys shouted, seizing Bronwyn's hand and pulling her towards the edge of the ruins, towards the concealing embrace of the forest. As they fled, Bronwyn risked a glance back. The cloaked figure remained bathed in moonlight, watching them, a cruel smile playing on his lips. His words resonated in her mind, a sinister omen of trials to come. He knew her name, her true name. He knew her identity, her potential, and he was coming for her. Blood and moonlight, the hunter's silvered blade, honed to a deadly keenness, slashed toward Da. Bronwyn's heart, Rhys, a feral snarl erupting, lunged, intercepting the lethal strike. The clang reverberated through the crumbling stone, the coppery scent of blood instantly sharp in the air. He stumbled, his fingers pressing against the burgeoning crimson stain blooming on his flank. "Rhys!" Bronwyn's cry was a fractured sound of pure anguish. He sank to his knees, his usually bright, lupine gaze now hazed with agony. The moonstone, knocked from her grip in the tumult, skittered across the flagstones, bathing the scene in unearthly luminance. "Flee, Bronwyn," he gasped, his voice a ragged whisper. "Escape. I'll delay them." His words ignited a fierce resolve within her, an instinctive defiance she hadn't known she possessed. Run? Abandon him to die? The notion was intolerable. Something fractured within her, a dam bursting to unleash a torrent of raw, untapped power. The air hummed around her, the very stones vibrating with unseen energies. The hunters, momentarily taken aback by Rhys's sacrifice, pressed their attack, their eyes gleaming with cruel anticipation. One of them smirked. "The wolf bleeds. Now, princess, your heritage will be ours." Bronwyn held her ground, hands extended, palms forward. The moonstone throbbed in response, its light amplifying, weaving about her like an ethereal shield. A surge of raw lunar force burst from her, flinging the hunters against the dilapidated walls. Cries of shock and pain punctuated the air as they reeled, disoriented. Felt it then, the power coursing through her, alien yet intrinsically hers. It was the moon's dominion, the legacy of her forebears, the strength she had long denied. It burned, it ached, it threatened to drown her, but beneath the overwhelming tide, there was a profound sense of belonging, of purpose. Rhys watched, his eyes a mixture of awe and concern. "Bronwyn, restrain it," he groaned, his voice faint. "You must focus." His words were an anchor, dragging her back from the precipice of being consumed by the magic. She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and conjured Rhys, his easy smile, his unwavering devotion, the way he regarded her as if she were his world. The lunar energy congealed, forming a shimmering bulwark around them, a pulsating wave of protection. The hunters, recovering, renewed their assault, but their weapons clanged harmlessly against the barrier. "We have to get out of here," Bronwyn declared, her voice shaky but resolute. She knelt beside Rhys, struggling to hoist him up. He was dead weight, his body convulsing with pain. I can't shift," he wheezed, his breath shallow and uneven. "The silver, it weakens me." Bronwyn refused defeat. She looped his arm around her shoulders, bearing his weight. The agony in his side was excruciatingly clear. "We're leaving, Rhys, together." With a rush of adrenaline fueled by newfound power and desperation, she hauled him toward the perimeter of the ruins. The hunters, enraged and thwarted, maintained their attack, that the lunar shield held, deflecting their blows. As they stumbled through the overgrown path, deeper into the embracing forest, Bronwyn felt Rhys's strength ebbing. He was losing blood rapidly, his breathing ragged and strained. "Hold on, Rhys," she pleaded, her voice thick with tears. "Just a little longer." The forest pressed in, the shadows deepening, the air saturated with the scent of pine and damp earth. The sounds of the hunters receded, yielding to the rustle of leaves and the distant lament of an owl. They reached a small glade, a secret haven bathed in silver wash. Bronwyn gently lowered Rhys to the ground, his face ashen and drawn. "Bronwyn," he rasped, his eyelids fluttering closed. I'm sorry." "Don't say that," she choked, her voice trembling. "You're going to be all right. I won't let you perish." She tore a strip from her dress, pressing it against his wound, trying to stanch the flow. The silver seared his flesh, inhibiting his natural healing. Panic threatened to engulf her. She was alone, injured, burdened with a wounded werewolf slipping into unconsciousness. She was helpless to heal him, to protect them both. And then, she recalled, the power, the lunar force surging through her veins. She focused, drawing on the moon's strength, channeling it into her hands. A gentle, silvery light emanated from her fingertips, bathing Rhys's injury in its glow. He flinched, moan escaping his lips, but then his body appeared to relax. The bleeding lessened, the silver burn diminishing slightly. "It's all right, Rhys," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She continued to channel the lunar energy, her hands trembling with the effort. It sapped her strength, but she couldn't falter. She had to save him. Hours drifted by, the moon arcing across the inky sky. Bronwyn remained by Rhys's side, relentlessly tending to his wound, murmuring words of comfort and encouragement. Gradually, miraculously, his condition began to improve. His breathing deepened, color returning to his cheeks. As dawn approached, painting the sky with shades of rose and gold, Rhys's eyes flickered open. He gazed at her, his expression flooded with gratitude and love. "Bronwyn," he whispered, his voice frail but audible. "You rescued me." She smiled, tears tracing paths down her face. "You rescued me first." Both were wounded, both bore scars, but they were alive. And in that moment, cocooned by the serene beauty of the forest, Bronwyn realized she was no longer simply a baker from a backwater town. She was a lunar heir, a guardian, a survivor, and she was prepared to confront whatever destiny held, so long as she had Rhys by her side. Whispers of treachery the sanctuary held its breath. A silence thicker than the forest mist clung to the stone walls, amplifying the soft rasp of Rhys's breathing. He lay still, too still, against a bed of furs. The silver-laced wound a livid brand on his shoulder. Bronwyn knelt beside him, her fingers tracing the edges of the bandage, feeling the heat radiating from his skin. The lunar energy still thrummed within her, a potent current she barely understood. Yet she focused it, channeled it, willing it to mend the damage done. Guilt gnawed at her. If she hadn't hesitated, hadn't been so caught off guard by the hunter, Rhys wouldn't be lying here, teetering on the edge of life and death. Days blurred into a relentless cycle of tending to Rhys, of monitoring his fever, of whispering pleas to the moon goddess she was only beginning to believe in. The pack moved around her, like shadows, their worry a tangible presence, yet a new tension crackled beneath the surface. The hunter's attack had not only wounded Rhys, it had pierced the illusion of their safety, their unity. One evening, as the moon cast long, skeletal fingers across the room, Ilara, Rhys's second-in-command, approached Bronwyn. Her face was etched with concern, but her eyes held a hard glint. "He's stable," Bronwyn said, her voice hoarse. "The fever hasn't broken, but it hasn't worsened." Ilara nodded, her gaze lingering on Rhys. "He's strong. He'll pull through." She paused, then drew a deep breath. There's something you should see. Bronwyn followed Elara to a small, sparsely furnished room used for training. In the center of the room, on a rough wooden table, lay the hunter's discarded weapon, a crossbow. But it wasn't the weapon itself that drew Bronwyn's attention. It was the inscription carved into the wood near the trigger. Viridian. Viridian? Bronwyn questioned, her brow furrowing. It's a rare type of wood, only found in one place, Elara explained, her voice low. The Blackwood Forest, on the border of the Shadowlands. And, she added, her voice dropping even lower, it's favored by a certain faction. A faction that benefits from Rhys's absence. Bronwyn felt a chill crawl down her spine. The Shadow Wolves, a rogue pack known for their brutality and their ruthless ambition. They had always been rivals, but an open attack like this, it was unprecedented. Are you saying someone here is working with them? Elara didn't answer directly. Instead, she picked up a small pouch that had been found near the hunter's body. She opened it, revealing a handful of silver coins, stamped with a serpent's head, the mark of the Shadow Wolves. These weren't just dropped, Elara said, her voice tight. They were deliberately left. A message. The implications slammed into Bronwyn with the force of a physical blow. Someone within the pack, someone they trusted, had betrayed them. Who? She whispered, the word laced with disbelief. That's what we need to find out, Elara said, her eyes meeting Bronwyn's. Rhys wouldn't want us to descend into paranoia, but we can't ignore this. We need to be careful. Trust no one implicitly. The weight of her words settled heavy on Bronwyn's heart. The sanctuary, once a haven, now felt like a trap. Every shadow seemed to conceal a potential enemy. Every whispered conversation held a hidden meaning. As the days passed, the tension within the pack grew palpable. Suspicion festered, poisoning the bonds that had once held them together. Bronwyn watched, helpless, as friendships fractured, alliances crumbled, and the pack, already weakened by Rhys's injury, began to tear itself apart from the inside. She tried to focus on Rhys, on channeling her lunar energy to aid his recovery, but the constant fear, the gnawing uncertainty, made it difficult to concentrate. She found herself questioning everyone, even those she had considered allies. Was Anya, the pack's healer, truly dedicated to Rhys's well-being, or was she subtly sabotaging his recovery? Was Gareth, Rhys's childhood friend, secretly resentful of Rhys's leadership, eager to seize power for himself? One evening, Bronwyn found Gareth sharpening his sword by the fire. His face was grim, his movements sharp and precise. He's not getting any better, Gareth said, his voice flat, without looking at Bronwyn. The silver, it's like poison. I'm doing everything I can, Bronwyn replied, her voice strained. Gareth finally looked up, his eyes filled with a complex mix of emotions, concern, frustration, and something else. Something Bronwyn couldn't quite decipher. He needs to be strong, Gareth said, his voice low. We all need him to be strong. The Shadow Wolves, they won't stop with this. They'll keep coming. We'll be ready, Bronwyn said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Gareth scoffed. Ready? How can we be ready when we don't even know who our enemy is? When they're walking among us, eating at our table, sharing our beds. His words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Bronwyn stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. Was he suspicious of someone in particular? Or was he simply voicing the fear that plagued them all? Later that night, unable to sleep, Bronwyn slipped out of the sanctuary and into the forest. The moon was a sliver in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the trees. She walked aimlessly, her mind reeling, trying to make sense of the chaos that had engulfed their lives. As she walked deeper into the woods, she heard a faint sound, a whisper, carried on the wind. She stopped, listening intently. The whisper came again, closer this time. It was a voice, low and urgent, speaking in hushed tones. Bronwyn followed the sound, moving silently through the trees until she reached a small clearing. In the center of the clearing, two figures stood silhouetted against the moonlight. She recognized one of them, Anya, the pack's healer. The other figure was cloaked and hooded, their face obscured by shadows. Bronwyn strained to hear their words. "The poison is working," Anya was saying, her voice barely audible. "He's weakening." "Good," the hooded figure replied, their voice a raspy whisper. "Soon, he'll be too weak to resist. And then we can take what is rightfully ours." Bronwyn's blood ran cold. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she had just stumbled upon the truth. The traitor within their ranks was Anya, and she was working with the shadow wolves to bring down Rhys and seize control of the pack. The serpent's kiss, the ghastly reek of putrescence, assaulted Rhys's nostrils, a sickening sweetness laced with the sharp tang of blood. Bronwyn dabbed his forehead with a chilled, wet cloth, her hand unsteady. The flesh beneath her touch blazed with fever, the aftermath of Anya's treacherous treatment. A wave of self-reproach washed over her. She had been so trusting, so eager to embrace the solace of her new pack, that she had failed to discern the rot spreading within. "Rhys," she breathed, her voice catching. "Please, wake up." Only a shallow, rasping inhale answered. She grazed his cheek with her fingertips. He lay deathly still. Too still. Bronwyn stood, her resolve hardening. Grief would not cripple her. Not now. The truth behind this treachery had to be unearthed. Anya was the obvious culprit, yet something felt amiss. Too simplistic. Rhys had instilled in her the habit of questioning everything, of heeding her intuition, even when it contradicted logic. She went to the window, gazing out at the forest bathed in moonlight. Elusive shadows danced among the trees, whispering secrets beyond her grasp. But she would understand them. She had to. For Rhys' sake. Turning back to his prone figure, she acknowledged her limitations. Even in his weakened condition, Rhys possessed a keen insight into the pack's dynamics, an awareness of unspoken tensions and hidden agendas that eluded her. She needed him coherent, even briefly. Bronwyn knelt beside him once more, placing a hand on his chest, focusing her lunar essence. A delicate balance was required, to channel the moon's power without overwhelming his already precarious state. Closing her eyes, she envisioned the laceration, picturing the restorative energy weaving the torn fibers together, expunging the venom from his system. The minutes stretched into an age. Sweat trickled down her face, her muscles screamed, but she persisted. At last, she perceived a tremor of resistance, a spark of his own vitality pushing back against the encroaching void. Rhys shuddered, his eyelids fluttering open. He looked up at her, confusion clouding his features. "Bronwyn?" he rasped, his voice a bare thread. "I'm here," she reassured, relief coursing through her veins. "Stay still. You're injured." He blinked, his gaze slowly sharpening. "Anya." "I know," Bronwyn cut in, "but I believe she had an accomplice. There's more to this, Rhys. Something larger." He closed his eyes briefly, summoning his strength. When he reopened them, the characteristic golden glint was present, though dulled by pain. "The packet is divided. Suspicion breeds manipulation. Who benefits from this?" Bronwyn queried softly. Who gains the most from your incapacitation? Rhys frowned, a crease deepening between his brows. Look beyond the surface, someone close by. Someone underestimated. Bronwyn weighed the possibilities. Liam, his loyal second, but perhaps that fealty was a pretense. Ilara, the pack strategist, ambitious, yet seemingly more drawn to influence than bloodshed. And then there was Finn. Finn, Rhys's childhood companion, his most trusted confidant. Finn, who had always been gracious to her, welcoming her into the pack. Finn, who had appeared genuinely distressed about Rhys's condition after the assault. Finn? She whispered, the name leaving a bitter taste. Rhys's eyes widened slightly. Possible he's always been in my wake. Resented it to a greater extent that I recognized. A shiver snaked down Bronwyn's spine. She recalled the way Finn had regarded Rhys, a blend of devotion and something else, something more sinister. She had dismissed it as friendly competition, a harmless rivalry. But what if her judgment had been flawed? He knew the patrol plan, she stated, recalling the details. He suggested it, claimed it was the safest route. Rhys nodded weakly. He understands my strategies perhaps better than I do. Bronwyn rose to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. I'm going to find him. Be cautious, Rhys croaked. He's resourceful. She nodded, seizing her knife from the table. I will be. Rest. I'll uncover the truth. Bronwyn slipped from the room, moving noiselessly through the pack house. The atmosphere was heavy with unease. The customary sounds of merriment and exchange supplanted by hushed murmurings and sidelong glances. She felt like an outsider in her own territory, hemmed in by wariness. She discovered Liam in the training area, engaging in swordsmanship with fierce intensity. Sweat matted his dark hair to his forehead, his features lined with worry. Liam, she said, approaching him cautiously. He ceased his movements, turning to face her, his expression wary. Bronwyn, how is he faring? Resting, she answered. I need your aid. I believe Finn is involved. Liam's involved. Face hardened. Finn? That's not credible. He's Rhys's closest friend. Perhaps, Bronwyn replied. But Rhys suspects he may have collaborated with Anya. Liam hesitated, his gaze shifting. I don't know what to say. Tell me what you know, Bronwyn urged. Have you observed anything peculiar about Finn's demeanor lately? He sighed, raking a hand through his hair. He's been withdrawn, evasive, spending considerable time away from the pack house, asserting he was surveying the area, but you doubted him? Yes, Liam confessed. I assumed perhaps he was merely grieving. Rhys's ordeal affected him profoundly. Bronwyn bit her lip. Did he ever allude to the shadow wolves? Liam's head jerked up, his eyes widening. No, never. Why? Because I suspect he's been conferring with them, Bronwyn revealed in a hushed tone. I believe he's been conspiring against Rhys. Liam stared at her, incredulity mixed with burgeoning horror. I can't accept that. I understand, Bronwyn said, but we must ascertain the facts. Will you assist me? Liam nodded, his jaw clenched. Yes. What do you require me to do? I want you to track Finn, Bronwyn instructed. Discover his destinations, his confidants, but proceed with utmost caution. If he's in league with the shadow wolves, he represents a grave threat. Liam nodded, seizing his sword. I comprehend. I won't fail you. Wah. Bronwyn watched him depart, a coil of trepidation constricting her stomach. She was dispatching him into danger, potentially into an ambush. but she had no alternative. She had to unveil the truth. Hours later, Liam returned, his countenance grim. "I located him," he reported. "He was meeting with I am uncertain of their identities, but they donned the insignia of the Shadow Wolves." Bronwyn's blood turned to ice. "Did you overhear their dialogue?" "Some of it," Liam verified. "They spoke of Rhys's, of eliminating him, of ambition and a debt owed by Finn." "A debt?" Bronwyn pressed, her thoughts racing. What leverage could the Shadow Wolves possess over Finn? "I couldn't discern the specifics," Liam admitted, frustrated. "They were circumspect, but it's evident Finn betrayed us. He's been collaborating with them for some time." Bronwyn closed her eyes, a wave of sickness rolling over her. The betrayal stung worse than any physical injury. Finn, a comrade, a trusted friend, had been a viper in their midst, tainting the pack from within. The allure of the mundane, the comfort of Cove, familiarity, had obscured the darkness that had been lurking in plain sight. "Where is he situated now?" she inquired, her voice almost inaudible. "Heading back to the pack house," Liam informed her. "He believes he escaped undetected." "He has no knowledge of our awareness." Bronwyn's eyes snapped open, blazing with frigid rage. "Then let us provide him with a rude awakening." She guided Liam back to the pack house, her stride swift and determined. They encountered Finn in the library, engrossed in territory maps. He glanced up at their arrival, a flicker of surprise registering on his face. "Bronwyn," he greeted smoothly. "Liam, how may I assist you?" "We know," Bronwyn stated, her tone clipped. "We are aware of the Shadow Wolves." Finn's complexion paled, but he swiftly regained his composure, a facade of innocence settling into place. "I am ignorant of your meaning." "Don't prevaricate," Bronwyn retorted, advancing closer. "We know you've been meeting with them. We know you conspired to harm Rhys." Finn's eyes darted around the space, searching for an exit. "You possess no evidence," he countered, his voice trembling slightly. "We have Liam's testimony." Bronwyn ozone and the cloying sweetness of overtaxed magic hung heavy in the air of the sanctuary, the aftermath of Bronwyn's efforts to mend Rhys. Though his breathing had stabilized, his face remained ashen, the ghost of Anya's venom clinging to his features. Beside him, Bronwyn cradled the moonstone, its soft luminescence a fragile barrier against the encroaching darkness she sensed coiling around them. At the entrance, Liam, his usual mirth replaced by a flinty edge, stood sentinel. "He needs uninterrupted rest," Bronwyn murmured, her gaze tracing the lines of pain etched on Rhys's face. "I can still feel the poison's tendrils." "He'll have it." Liam's voice was a low growl. "No one breaches this room." But Liam's assurance proved premature. A subtle ripple in the air, a displacement of energy too faint for most, pricked Bronwyn's senses. A cold dread washed over her. Something was deeply amiss. Then a shadow peeled itself from the altar's side, solidifying into Finn's recognizable yet altered form. His complexion was ashen, his eyes darting with a hunted look. He clutched a small, ornate box. "Finn?" Bronwyn questioned, suspicion sharpening her tone. "What are you doing?" Finn recoiled, his gaze skittering away from hers. I need to borrow the moonstone. Briefly, it's for Rhys. I know how to accelerate his recovery." Bronwyn's grip on the moonstone tightened. "That's a fabrication. I can feel it. You're not here to help Rhys." Liam advanced, his hand instinctively finding the grip of his sword. "Finn, what's happening? Explain yourself." Finn's practiced composure shattered like glass. Desperation widened his eyes, and a film of sweat slicked his brow. "Please, just give me the moonstone. I don't want to hurt anyone." "Hurt anyone?" Bronwyn scoffed, her voice hardening with scorn. "You already are, Finn. You betrayed Rhys. You were in league with the Shadow Wolves, weren't you?" The flinch that racked his body was a damning confession. He surged forward, hand outstretched towards Bronwyn. "Just hand it over." Liam moved with practiced speed, drawing his sword and intercepting Finn's advance. The polished steel gleamed in the dim light, the sound amplified in the tense stillness. "Stand down, Finn," Liam warned, his voice edged with steel. "This doesn't need to end violently. It already has." Finn's shout cracked with hysteria. He produced a dagger from his belt, its polished edge reflecting the ambient light with a sinister gleam. "I'm out of options." Bronwyn rose, lunar power coalescing around her. The moonstone flared brighter, painting eerie shadows across the chamber. "Who's pulling your strings, Finn? Who ordered you to do this?" Finn hesitated, his gaze flickering involuntarily toward Rhys, who stirred feebly on the bed. "It's irrelevant. Just give me the stone, and maybe I can still salvage this mess." "Salvage this?" Bronwyn repeated, incredulity ringing in her voice. "You attempted to murder Rhys. You endangered the entire pack. There's no absolution for that." "Then, only repercussions." Finn lunged anew, his dagger aimed at Liam's unprotected side. Liam deflected the attack, their weapons meeting in a screech of metal. The duel was ungainly, fueled by Finn's terror and Liam's unwavering loyalty. Bronwyn positioned herself between Finn and Rhys, a fierce protectiveness surging through her. She wouldn't allow Finn to inflict further harm. "I asked you a question, Finn," she reiterated, her voice a low, menacing thrum. "Who is your master?" Finn ignored her, his focus fixated on Liam. He fought with a frenzied energy, his movements erratic and unpredictable, a desperate dance. However, Liam was the stronger, the more skilled combatant. He steadily gained control, pushing Finn back towards the altar. Abruptly, Finn perceived an opening. In a surge of desperation, he shoved Liam off balance and lunged towards the altar. He snatched the box he had placed there earlier, triumph lighting his eyes. "Too late!" he yelled, ripping the box open. Within, resting on a bed of dark velvet, lay a small, intricately carved stone, not the moonstone, but a shadow stone, throbbing with malignant energy. He seized it, crushing it in his grasp. The sanctuary trembled under a palpable shift. The air turned frigid, and shadows writhed around Finn like living entities. He began to metamorphose, his body distorting, his features sharpening into cruel angles, his eyes radiating an unnatural luminescence. He was channeling the Shadow Stone's power, transforming himself into something monstrous. "You fool!" Bronwyn cried, her eyes widening in horrified realization. "You're destroying yourself." Finn's laughter was a grating sound that reverberated through the sanctuary. "I'm becoming something greater, sufficiently potent to seize what is rightfully mine." He turned towards Bronwyn, his eyes blazing with animosity. "You and your precious moonstone will be mine." He attacked, his transformed body moving with unsettling speed. Bronwyn raised the moonstone, pouring her lunar energy into it. A lance of pure white light erupted, striking Finn squarely in the chest. He stumbled backward, momentarily paralyzed. The light cauterized his skin, scorching away the encroaching shadows. He roared in agony and rage, his transformation faltering. Liam reacted instantly, tackling Finn to the ground. They grappled, their bodies slamming against the flagstones. The sanctuary echoed with the sounds of their struggle-strained grunts, curses, and the sickening crunch of bone. Bronwyn watched, her heart hammering in her chest. She realized, had to intervene, but she feared causing Finn irreparable harm. He remained Rhys's comrade, a member of their pack, despite his transgression. But hesitation was not an option. She had to safeguard Rhys, safeguard Liam, safeguard this pack. She focused her strength, drawing upon the Moonstone's power. She felt a tidal wave of power surging within her, raw and untamed, threatening to overwhelm her. She aimed the Moonstone at Finn, her hand trembling. "I don't desire this, Finn," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But you leave me no alternative." She unleashed the full might of her lunar energy. The sanctuary erupted in light, a blinding flash that engulfed everything. When the brilliance subsided, Finn lay motionless on the floor, his body broken and twisted. Shadow Stone had vanished, reduced to nothing more than a dark dust. The sanctuary was ravaged. Stone was cracked and splintered, tapestries hung in shreds, and the air reeked of ozone and charred flesh. Liam lay nearby, bruised and battered, but breathing. Bronwyn rushed to Rhys, her heart pounding. He was still unconscious, but his breathing held steady. She placed a hand on his forehead, channeling her healing essence into him. He stirred, his eyelids fluttering. Open. He focused on her, confusion clouding his gaze. "Bronwyn," he murmured. "What transpired?" "Finn," she said, emotion choking her voice. He betrayed us." Rhys's eyes widened in disbelief. "Finn? But why?" "I don't know," Bronwyn confessed, tears streaming down her face. "But he's gone now. He can't hurt us anymore." She drew him close, burying her face in his hair. Only the sound of their ragged breathing filled the sanctuary. The betrayal had been savage, the battle devastating. But they had endured, for the moment at least. Forged in moonlight, Bronwyn glared at Finn's corrupted form, the air saturated with the cloying reek of shadow magic. Rhys was a pale, still figure, his shallow breaths a grim testament to Finn's perfidy. A choked sound escaped her, quickly stifled, replaced with steely resolve. She wouldn't allow Finn to defile the sanctuary, wouldn't let him abscond with the Sond Moonstone, and, above all, wouldn't permit him to inflict further harm upon Rhys. Then, she stated, her voice a surprising anchor of calm despite trembling fingers. "Why this?" The twisted mockery of the man chuckled, a rasping, unearthly noise. "Why? Because of dominion, Bronwyn. True dominion. The kind you were gifted but are too naive to command." He surged forward, talons extended, and Bronwyn reacted by instinct. The Moonstone thrummed against her sternum, a heat blooming through her limbs. She dodged Finn's assault, feeling a nascent energy, a hidden current awaken within her. It wasn't solely the Moonstone. It was something intrinsic, stirring to life. Raising her hands, a luminous shield of lunar energy shimmered into being, turning aside Finn's subsequent strike. "I might not be a master yet," she retorted, "but I'm learning fast. And I won't let you reduce everything to ashes." The battle was a brutal ballet. Finn, supercharged by shadow magic, was an implacable force, his attacks vicious and unrelenting. Bronwyn, drawing upon the Moonstone and her own dawning potential, defended with fierce, desperate devotion. She weaved, blocked, and retaliated, her movements gaining precision and assurance with each parry and thrust. Liam, still fragile from his earlier ordeal, could only watch with wide, anxious eyes, powerless to intervene. "You're fighting a losing battle, Bronwyn," Finn hissed, his voice a guttural snarl torn from his throat. "Your fate is to serve the shadows, to surrender to the abyss." "My destiny is my own to forge," she flung back, channeling her fear and fury into a burst of lunar energy. It slammed into Finn's chest, rocking him backward. Seizing the opening, she unleashed another surge, this one infused with the untamed might of the moon. It was power she barely comprehended, yet she placed her faith in it, trusted the instinct that now guided her. The energy coalesced into a lance of pure moonlight, and with a defiant shout, she hurled it toward Finn. The spear found its mark, piercing Finn's monstrous form. He bellowed in torment, the shadow magic sputtering and dying. His body spasmed violently. Then, with a final, shuddering exhale, he crumpled, his features reverting to their former human shape. The shadow stone, now dull and inert, skittered away from his still hand. Bronwyn stood gasping, her muscles quivering, the moonstone humming gently against her. The air, still redolent of shadow magic, gradually began to dissipate. She gazed down at Finn's vacant face, a sudden tide of sorrow washing over her. He had been a friend, a confidant. Now he was gone, devoured by his own ambition and the lure of forbidden power. Liam hurried to her side, his expression etched with profound relief. "Bronwyn, are you okay?" She nodded, speechless, her gaze still riveted to Finn's corpse. The burden of his betrayal, his demise, was a crushing weight. She had been compelled to slay him, to extinguish a life that had once held such promise. "He charted his own course," Liam murmured, understanding the tempest in her eyes. "You did what you had to do to safeguard Rhys, to safeguard all of us." Bronwyn turned toward Rhys, her heart aching at his stillness. She knelt beside him, gently stroking his hair. "He needs me," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I have to mend him." She closed her eyes, concentrating on the moonstone, summoning its restorative properties. A soft, otherworldly radiance emanated from her hands as she placed them on Rhys's chest. She channeled the lunar energy, concentrating on knitting his wounds closed, neutralizing the effects of Anya's poison. Moments stretched into an eternity as Bronwyn poured her very essence into Rhys. Finally, she detected a flicker of vitality, a fragile pulse beneath her palms. She persisted in channeling the moonstone's energy, refusing to concede defeat, until at last Rhys drew a ragged breath, his eyelids fluttering open. He regarded her, his gaze unfocused at first, then clearing with recognition. "Bronwyn?" he rasped, his voice faint. "I'm here," she responded, relief washing over her in a tidal wave. "You're secure now." He reached for her hand, his fingers feebly clasping hers. "Finn." "He's gone," she said, her voice strained with suppressed emotion. "He deceived us." Rhys closed his eyes, a sharp pang of sorrow etching itself onto his face. The treachery wounded him deeply, a scar that would require time to heal. But he was alive, and that was paramount. Bronwyn bent down and kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. He returned the kiss weakly, his grip tightening on her hand. When she finally drew back, she looked at Liam. "We need to get him back to the pack house," she said. "He requires rest." Liam nodded, helping her to lift Rhys. Together, they bore him from the clearing, leaving behind the shattered ruins of Finn's dreams and the lingering miasma of shadow magic. As they walked, Bronwyn raised her eyes to the moon, its light painting the forest in an unearthly luminescence. She felt a burgeoning strength, a self-assurance she hadn't previously known. She was a lunar scion, a guardian, and she would stop at nothing to protect those she cherished. Her life as she knew it was gone, exchanged for a fate she was only beginning to grasp. But she was prepared to confront it, ready to harness her abilities and fight for what lay ahead. Forged in moonlight, she would not break. Dawn of destiny, golden lances of sunrise pierced the ruined apothecary's windows, striping the debris-strewn floor. Bronwyn, kneeling, felt the slow, sure beat of Rhys's heart beneath her hand. Alive, he was alive, though Finn was lost to them. Victory tasted like ash. The moonstone thrummed a gentle heat against her thigh, a small comfort against the encroaching chill of grief. Her gaze fell to her hands. No longer simply those of a baker, shaping dough and crafting sweetmeats, they now held Dominionta heel, to break, to weave the very threads of existence. The weight of it pressed down, suffocating. Could she truly shoulder this? Had choice ever played a part? Rhys stirred, eyelids flickering. He found her face, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "Bronwyn," he breathed, voice rough-edged. "You're here." "Here," she echoed, emotion clogging her throat. "And alive, because of you." He sought her hand, his grasp fragile yet determined. "Not me, you. You pulled me back, Bronwyn. You claimed your birthright." Birthright. The word reverberated, an inescapable echo of the path unveiled before her. Had she embraced it, or simply been swept along by an irresistible current? "I ended him, Rhys," she confessed, barely audible. "I ended Finn." A cloud passed over his features. "He forged his own end, Bronwyn. You were defending us. You did what was necessary. But what if I hadn't been? What if doubt had paralyzed me? What if I'm insufficient?" The questions tumbled forth, a cascade of fear. Rhys framed her face, his golden eyes delving into hers. "Enough, Bronwyn. More than enough. Don't let Finn's darkness tarnish your inner light. You harbor the moon goddess herself. You are of royal blood." His words sparked a small ember in the encroaching cold. A royal. She, Bronwyn, the baker from Oakhaven. A royal? It felt like a fragile illusion, ready to shatter. Yet, the moonstone's hum, the power singing in her veins, the devotion in Rhys's eyes, all of it was indisputably real. "I don't know if I can, Rhys," she admitted, her voice trembling. "If I can become what everyone expects." He drew her close, enveloping her in a sheltering embrace. "Be only yourself, Bronwyn. Be the woman I cherish. The one whose bread is legendary. The one who is kind, courageous, utterly faithful. That is all that matters." His words were a soothing balm, a reminder of the simple, cherished life she got lost, perhaps forever. Yet, perhaps she could weave them together, embrace destiny while guarding her humanity. A low growl reverberated from the doorway. Anya stood there, her face creased with worry. Behind her stood Liam, Ilara, and other pack members, their expressions a blend of relief and trepidation. "His condition?" Anya asked softly. "He'll recover," Bronwyn assured, offering a fragile smile. "The moonstone pulled him through." Anya nodded, her gaze settling on Bronwyn. "We heard about Finn. What you did." Bronwyn steeled herself, anticipating judgment. Instead, She met only respect in Anya's gaze. "You safeguarded us, Bronwyn," Liam stated, stepping forward. "You stood as our shield. You are our protector." A surge of emotion flooded Bronwyn, gratitude mingled with humility. These were her people, her pack. They had accepted her for the woman she was, not for her lineage or power. "Aikwe," Bronwyn began, her voice catching. "Words escape me." "Pledge to guide us," Ilara interjected, her voice resolute. "Pledge to stand with us, as we will with you." Bronwyn sought Rhys's counsel in his eyes. He offered unwavering support, a silent affirmation. She faced the pack, her heart swelling with purpose. "I pledge it," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. "I will guide you. I will shield you. I will stand with you, always." A collective exhalation swept through the pack. They had found their leader, their guardian, and Bronwyn had found her place, her destiny. As the sun crested the horizon, bathing the apothecary in a warm glow, the shattered windows no longer symbolized destruction, but renewal. That old life was shattered, broken. But from the shards, a new existence blossomed, one interwoven with magic, peril, and a love that transcended all. Bronwyn gazed at Rhys, his eyes still closed, his breathing even. The road ahead remained fraught with challenge. Relics awaited discovery, curses needed breaking, adversaries must be confronted. Yet she no longer feared. With Rhys by her side, her pack at her back, and the moon goddess's power coursing through her, she was ready. She was Bronwyn Baker, royal, protector, and she would meet destiny head-on, armed with valor, compassion, and an unshakable belief in the strength of love. Leaning down, she pressed a kiss to his lips, a silent vow of devotion. The hour of her destiny was at hand, and she would embrace it with courage.